Hang on. Oh, okay. I thought I heard
And
an echo.
nope, we're on. We're here. Hello, internet. Welcome to Chair Talk, our one-time only Game of Thrones podcast. I'm here with my friend Eric, who's a bottle of water. Hello, Eric, the sentient bottle of water.
It's actually just a photo of me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's a
that's
really good.
correct.
That's a really good selfie that you took there. I
I
am.
I mean I'm all about selfies. That's
Yeah, right. I know. I've known you for years, and I know you're a selfie fiend.
it's true. I have actually been lambasted numerous times by numerous people
Right.
for taking too many selfies.
Yeah,
So,
everything that I know about the art of taking a selfie, I've learned from you.
well,
You're
it's important to a lot of people, so
yeah, mostly to you.
mostly to me.
So yeah, I'm here and I'm gonna talk to my sentient bottle of water friend, and we're gonna talk about Game of Thrones because we were going to anyway, so we figured we might as well make a stream or a video out of it. Well, I figured that, and Eric was down because he's a great person.
I haven't even watched Game of Thrones before. This is just
No, no. All right, so okay, let me just I'm going to recap the whole plot for you.
all right.
I'm not actually going to do that. I have zero interest in doing that. But we have watched and consumed the entirety of Game of Thrones between the two of us.
Yes.
And so let's start. So do you want to start? Do you want to start with the finale, or do you want to just like go big, go galaxy brain, and talk about the
Yeah,
whole
yeah. Yeah.
show?
Let's the whole show. Let's do the whole show. We'll do the whole big recap thing,
All right. So
or
we'll
whatever it is you think is the most fitting.
yeah, no. So let's say so we've watched this show over what is it, like 8 years or 9 years or something like that? Eight
Hmm.
seasons, 70 some odd episodes. I don't know how many.
Yep.
If I were a good prepared streamer, then I would have known all of these. I would have had all these stats here to um, put them out there, but I don't.
I think it's 74 episodes. Do
That
not quote me on that.
I'm gonna quote you on that. It's
Oh,
definitely 74 episodes. Um,
that's
what
seems legit.
what are you? What's your like big picture galaxy brain feeling about the series?
My big picture galaxy brain feeling about the series is that it was a phenomenal series. I mean, it's going to be up there as one of the all-time great shows. Um, I think despite the fact that there was definitely some issues at the end, like I think the world
Mm.
probably agrees that season 7 and 8 were not on the same level as much of the rest of it.
Right.
I think nonetheless it's still going to land as being one of at least the first 4 to 5 seasons will land as some of the best TV that I think has ever been made.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I also think that this there's a non-zero chance that this show goes down as like one of the most like disappointing endings. Because like when you talk about like those big series, when you talk about like Sopranos is like the one I'm thinking of, and like Lost, you talk about like these really good series that like their endings were just like so bad. And
Was Sopranos a bad ending?
was it? I don't know. I've never
I
watched The
thought it was
Sopranos. That's
I
just
thought
what
it was supposed to be phenomenal,
I'm
like
just
all the
I'm
way through.
I'm only going off of what people have told me.
Fair. Yeah, I'm not gonna.
I haven't watched The Sopranos. This is
Okay.
this so maybe we won't talk about The Sopranos
Mhm.
because I assume you haven't either.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah,
that is.
yeah. So have you watched Lost?
I Okay, so I have not watched it, but I have read the entire wiki about
Okay,
it. So like,
I have done none of those things, but I've heard that the ending is terrible.
yeah, just like reading about the ending, I was like, man, I am glad I did not schlep through the
Yeah,
entirety of that series because
Right. Glad we're. Do you think that Game of Thrones? Do you think this show will be thought of in the same way? Because I kind of feel like it might.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's almost no chance, given the quality dip. And honestly, one of the things I was thinking of towards the end of the series, right, was that if they had just made season 8,
Mm-hmm.
but not called it Game of Thrones, and just had it be like a 6 episode special, we'll call it, I don't know,
Yeah, like the finale or something.
or not even the finale, just something entirely if it was, generic fantasy 6 episodes one, right? You just enter in media race, people are like, we're here to battle the dead, and then just shit goes.
Yeah.
Then I think it is well made, it's well acted. The only
Yeah.
issue is that,
Absolutely. I mean,
so
even in like the worst episodes of the last couple of seasons, the production value is like through the fucking roof.
absolutely, and I think there's not a soul on this earth who disagrees with that. The acting, the production value, the scoring,
Yeah.
all of those things are great. It was mostly just the direction that people,
Yeah.
the writing direction that people didn't enjoy. So I think, if you called it, like, fuck it, put it in like the Forgotten Realms universe or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then you just say, like, this is our Forgotten Realms series, and it's just 6 episodes of people fighting against undead and then usurping a queen, killing a queen, and then figuring out a new king. Like, that's a
Right.
story on its own,
Sure.
right? Like, you can kind of extrapolate some of these things that have happened, because not necessarily the big things, but you can tell, like, the characters that are fighting here at Winterfell have a relationship.
Right.
Like, it's clear that Jon and Dany have had some kind of conflict.
Yeah.
And you have all of the elements of a full self-contained story,
Right.
and it's an entertaining self-contained
Yeah.
story,
Oh yeah.
because
Totally.
it's the kind of thing where if you just ignore the other 7 seasons, you can extrapolate like your own story and kind of it's sort of a CYOA that way. And
But
I think if you did it like that, it's very interesting. But as a
the,
Game of Thrones or as a Song of Ice and Fire finale, I think in
Right.
that sense it's not what people were looking for.
and that's the problem, is that like even if it is a good story in and of itself, like it's not. We weren't playing a D&D one shot. We were playing a whole campaign.
Right.
And like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes. No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. We're actually my other podcast we're doing I do with my other friend Eric, who's not a bottle of water, he's a real person. And we do a podcast about GMing, and our episode this Sunday we're going to talk about ending campaigns as an excuse to talk about Game of Thrones on that podcast.
Oh, I like it.
I talk about ending campaigns and why it's the hardest fucking thing to do in the world.
I think I've been in like one campaign that ended, and it actually ended phenomenally. So
Yeah,
I'm just gonna keep batting 1,000 there.
Well, I was gonna say, so you weren't there for the end of Pains and Gains, but that's the Blades in the Dark campaign. But that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one campaign I've ever had to end, and like that was the hardest shit I've ever done as a GM.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
Like not even close. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. I lost sleep, and we weren't even streaming it. I just lost sleep over creating an ending that would be satisfying to like me and my friends.
The one thing that I think is different about something like that,
Mm-hmm.
about ending a campaign versus ending a TV show, though, is if you end a campaign and it turns out the ending sucked, that doesn't have to be the end of the campaign.
Right. You
Right,
can
like
always
provided
start
you,
again.
provided people are still willing to play, and if they're not satisfied with the ending and they're like, oh, but I still wanted to do this, and like I feel like I didn't conclude this, bam, fuck it, you can just hop right
Yeah.
back in and keep
Or like
going.
that. Those can be like side stories or one shots or something.
Yeah,
like that.
but with
yeah.
a TV show, what you get is what you
can't,
get.
Yeah, you
So-
can't really. There's a finality to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think the first 5 seasons will go down as fan fucking tastic.
I
I
agree.
think the
Yeah.
first 4 seasons will go down as the best 4 seasons of any show ever made. Um,
I was.
there is I I go through and I try to think about what actors. Almost every show, there's an actor where you're like, oh, they didn't really give that great of a performance, or they didn't really do that good of a job. I go
Yeah.
through the list of actors and actresses in Game of Thrones, and I can't think of a single person where I'm like, damn,
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
think somebody else. I think somebody else could have done it way better.
There are so many things, especially in the last couple of seasons, and like especially in season 8, and especially in the last couple of episodes, that like you can tell the writers are trying so hard to get them to resonate emotionally, and they are, but it's not because of the writing, it's because of the actors. Like when Tyrion goes off at the start of the finale, and he says, and like he's like, I'm gonna go my own way, and they're like, do you want to bring someone with you? And he says no, and it's just like, okay. And then he just, I guess, goes down into the basement of King's Landing, which like a lot of it wasn't as destroyed as it looked like it
I was
was.
gonna say,
And
if
like,
only Jaime and Cersei had moved 15 feet to
exactly.
the left.
And also they were under like 3 rocks each, so, and like he like sees the hand sticking out. Like, I was laughing, like
I was too.
I thought that was hilarious. But like when he does that and then he like starts to cry and get upset about it, like I was sold on that moment solely just because of Peter Dinklage being a fucking
Oh yeah.
baller.
So on that note of people and of actors making characters sympathetic, one of the things that I've heard people say is that Cersei's final scene was fantastically sympathetic, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that her performance made it so that you really felt bad for her as the Red Keep was crumbling down around her.
Right.
So my question to you, did you feel bad when that was happening?
I didn't feel bad, but I was 100% sold on like the sense of like terror and like horror and like
Yeah.
and like that and it's Lena Headey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like she does such a good job, and like it, like Cersei really didn't get much of anything to do this season. Like,
Yeah,
she
she
just,
did. She looked outside. She looked out of the Red Keep.
she
for
looked
at
outside
least-
so much, but like but like watching her in the second to last episode, like looking outside and like figuring all of that out, and like you can see like the moment when she realizes that like she's done skis, and
Mhm.
and like all of that you can see on her face, and like it's just so like it's sold so well. Like I appreciated it and I loved it. And like same with like I didn't like a lot of the Jamie stuff, but like when Nikolai Coster-Waldau and Lena Headey got together and started acting together again, I was just like, "Yup, I'm here for it. Let's go!" Like,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I just have so many thoughts about episode 5. That's my I just
yeah,
man.
we haven't talked about episode 5.
No, we haven't. But
Let's talk about episode 5.
so let's in part it. So one of my friends said
Mm-hmm.
that they really didn't like about the end of episode 5 was
Okay.
was kind of what we were talking about, presenting Cersei as this almost damsel in distress kind of person.
Right.
And I don't know. I thought that was one of the most laughable criticisms I have ever heard about Game of Thrones, because I was so happy that they portrayed her as this scared little kid at the end.
Yeah, they show her for what she really is.
Exactly.
Right?
Like
she's built up around, and she's got these like large like walls and like all these people around her and guards and all that. And of course she's gonna like, as long as she's in a position of power and she's someone who craves power. So like absolutely, but then yeah, you strip all of that away and you get that like that
scared little kid.
scared little attention seeking girl who like was always looking for approval and attention and found it in her brother. Yeah.
Every political move that she made I mean, Tywin Lannister said in like, and I think it was season 2 or 3, like you're not as smart as you think you are, and
Right.
that's your biggest flaw.
Right.
Every political move that she made worked out through sheer dumb luck,
Oh yeah, totally.
basically.
Yeah, it
Like,
was because like either someone else was also working towards it, or like it just so happened that like
mhm.
you know so and so was coming to like save people or whatever. Yeah.
Right, yeah, like imagine a world. I mean, imagine a world where some world leader just nukes the Vatican,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And everybody fucking knows. Like,
Yeah.
everybody around the world knows that, like, the prime minister of Italy nukes.
Yeah.
Italy have, I assume Italy has a prime minister, just like
Uh,
destroys the Vatican,
the president
right?
of Italy.
Sure. The leader of Italy destroys
There
the
you go.
Vatican,
Yeah.
kills hundreds,
Right.
and just like annihilates all of these historical monuments. And everyone knows it was them.
And they do
And
it
they're
dressed
just
as they do it dressed as a Disney villain.
exactly. And then there are no consequences because
Right.
reason like nobody rises up, nobody freaks out and is like, "Yo, what the hell?" Nobody.
Yeah.
So like she was lucky that that didn't happen. And
Yeah,
just
it's also like a very different like time. Like that kind of thing can't happen in real life because the gap between like the lower class and the like ruling class is like much less than it is in Game of Thrones in real life.
what do you
Right?
mean?
So like so the difference between like a peasant in Game of Thrones and like the queen is like very different from like a lower class person and like the president in modern day structures. Am I
I
wrong?
mean, in I'm still kind of confused as to where that all ties in, I guess.
Like the gap there makes it so that in real life there would be much more consequence than there
I
was
see.
for Cersei.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
It was a bit of a windy road, but I got there.
I mean, I feel like I'm talking more physical consequences, like
Right.
the faith that faith is a very big thing, especially at that time. So like you nuke the center, everyone knows it was you. When like the entire city is following that faith, they're not just gonna be like, "Ugh, shucks,
Right. Yeah.
nothing we can do." Like you have a city of 500,000.
Yeah.
It's not like modern day where 20,000 heavily armed people can kill 500,000 unarmed people. Like
Right.
you throw enough people at the problem here, you'll get it done. So it was all things like that where things were that she did, people just didn't retaliate
Yeah.
for one reason. Like she did not face a consequence until the entire city was burned down around her. Like that was the first real consequence that she actually faced in the entire series if you watch. And that is the time that she freaks out. Like she there well there's
Like my
also
like
the
Mycella leaving Dorne or getting
but
shipped to Dorne.
that wasn't a consequence of her action so much. Was it?
Well, it was like it was when she was in the middle of that like kind of like tit for tat with Tyrion
Right.
when he was the Hand in season 2. And like
Hmm.
one of like she did something and then his like kind of like response to that was like shipping Mycella away. And
Right.
like
Yeah, you're right. And I guess there was also her getting, walk of shamed back and all of that.
right.
So I guess what I say is kind of bullshit, but
I
it's
and like also like Tommen killing himself was like not nothing. If she's like her one kind of like anchoring point as a character is like she loves her
I
children.
yeah, I think he was dead to her anyway though at that point.
Maybe, I guess.
Like I don't know, her reaction to that was, you know,
Yeah,
it was like obviously shock,
she's like
but it
she's
was
like I know my son died, but I ain't gonna let it harsh my mood here.
yeah, I mean, I mean pretty much like Because at that point, she had lost him to both Marjorie and the Faith. So it was like he had transitioned away from being her son,
Yeah.
right? Like he was now actually acting as king. He was like none of her kids grew up to a point where they stopped being her baby,
Yeah.
right?
I
Like
don't think
Joffrey
they
died at
I don't think they ever would have. Right?
probably,
Like she's probably
probably,
one
yeah.
of like those kind of like those kind of moms that are just like you're never leaving my sight. I'm
Mhm.
gonna preordain everything for you. You know, that
Mhm.
sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah. Um
I have a declaration that I've been thinking about for a large portion of the day,
Ship it.
and I've decided, and I know that this is not going to be your favorite, and you're going to disagree,
Let's go. Let's do it.
but I believe that Arya Stark is a trash character for trash people, and she's no longer interesting. Like within the past season and a half, she's just not interesting. She killed
Um
the phrase, and then I didn't care about anything else she did.
um well
If
so
you had cut her from from episode 5, nothing is lost. Literal nothing is lost.
I mean like she's there to give us that like that long tracking shot of like the devastation from a character point of
Have
view that we care
have
about.
have all right. Here's how about this? Cut Arya from the episode completely, replace her with Davos. Davos, somebody who grew up and lived in King's Landing for his entire life almost,
Right.
is running around King's Landing, his home, watching it be destroyed and trying to save people. Like at
Yeah.
some point he gets separated from Jon, and then he runs around trying to survive and save people and watches his city be destroyed. Like how much better of a scene
Yeah.
is
No,
that?
I totally agree. I agree with that. Like that it was weird that it was Arya. Like it makes sense that it was Arya. Um I like I don't necessarily think that she is like a trash character. I think that her plotline was kind of like done kind of dirty, but like I feel like her plotline was done kind of dirty before the last two seasons.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, so this is not me saying she has always been a trash character for
sure,
trash people.
sure,
She has she has become one. Like she has become the Mary Sue of Mary Sues. Like her fucking I think what I didn't realize it until just the other day, but the scene with her and Gendry where she's like, "Can you make this weapon?" And it's a fucking staff that turns into two knives. Like, are you kidding me?
the
Like
dude,
the fact
the weapons maker on the show was so proud of that thing. Like in
he
interviews and stuff, he was so proud of that thing.
like why was that a scene? That was just one
Yeah,
of the dumbest things
but
because like
I don't think that that's a fault of Arya. I think again that's like a fault of the writing.
yeah, well,
Like
unfortunately, the writing is what makes the character. So like, if the writing for a character is shitty, that means the character becomes shitty.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I wouldn't. So like, I wouldn't go as far as to call her like a Mary Sue. I just don't think that that term is used like well ever. And I'm not a fan of it. But like, I definitely agree that like she didn't have to be in any episode past like the Night King episode.
I
And
don't.
like
And so why do you think she is not a Mary Sue? Like, in the past several episodes, what significant flaw has she shown other than she cared about people too much and accidentally like got someone killed?
like
Like
she
that's like walking into an interview and they're like, "Oh, what's your biggest flaw?" Would you say? You say, "Oh, sometimes I work too hard and what I submit is too good." Like that's
No,
what
she didn't care about people. That was her thing. Like she becomes so like we kind of see her ever since she like gets back from Westeros or gets back from Bravos, and she comes back and she kills the Freys, and she comes up and she's just kind of this like mindless, like not mindless, but she's just an assassin. She's like this kind of like very deadpan, like kind of like cold-hearted killer, which she has kind of like become over this long kind of like arc that we see that culminates in like her killing the Night King, and that's like the resolution of that arc. And then she like is going down and she's like following it a lot in like Sandor's footsteps, because like Sandor, who like, don't even get me wrong on characters that were done dirty in the ending of, because like holy shit, the fucking Sandor Clegane, my heart goes out for you, buddy. But she's like following kind of in his footsteps, which makes sense because like he was like, whether or not she'll ever admit it, like one of her like primary role models when in like the, you know, and I feel like her arc finishes not before the season or whatever, but when the Hound has that conversation with her and like is like, hey, I know you want to kill Cersei because you want to finish your list, but you know, this whole like revenge thing, like it ain't a good life, trust me, you know, like, and she has that. And then like when he goes to leave and he like kind of convinces her to turn back and she calls him Sandor, like that whole scene I feel was like the culmination of her arc.
While I think that that's definitely true, the whole idea that she was this uncaring robot the entire time is true in a sense, but it really was. I mean, she showed that she cared about everyone in her family. She had a, like, I wouldn't say heartwarming, but she had a nice interaction with Hot Pie when she came back, and she had good interactions with Gendry. And like, yes, she had grown slightly colder, but not to the point where it was like, not to the Bran point, right? Where he's just like, I don't really care about it. Where like she did.
Yeah, and, but she was like, she was as cold as she could get while still being like a likable character. Like,
right, but I think the fact that she was D&D's favorite character, like what we talked about last time, the show's favorite character, did her a huge disservice.
Oh, for sure.
I think there was really no reason for her to exist. Like, why the fuck did she have a seat on the council? What are her credentials there?
Yeah, I mean, like, that whole council scene, we can agree, was just a shit show.
Yeah, I mean, like, yes, it was Supreme fans. Like, there were people there who it made a lot of sense to be there, right? You have Davos, who's been Jon's hand as like a relevant person. Yeah, Bran may have been summoned by somebody or brought along with Sansa. Then you have Robb and Aaron, like, you know, all the people who are actually lords. And then you have Brienne, and you have Arya, and like, why are they there?
I don't have an answer for that. I don't.
And that's what I mean by like, she's this perfect character, because she just gets included in things that don't need her because she's a popular character.
Sure.
And that's what I mean by like, she's a garbage Mary Sue, because
the
authors just insert themselves and they're like, oh, I would be there, like, I'm important.
That doesn't make a character a Mary Sue though.
She seems pretty perfect to me. Drizzt Do'Urden is a Gary Sue, and his flaw is that he's a loner and he's very stoic and he doesn't like friends except for the few people that are close to him. And he's absolutely a Gary Sue. She has 100% entered into this Drizzt Do'Urden realm where she's this master fighter who keeps people at a distance because she's seen too many bad things. But also everybody loves her and she holds leadership roles all over, even though she
doesn't though. She's just
not leadership roles.
She's just leaving on a boat. She's Christopher Columbus now.
I mean, good for her, honestly. Off to discover Westworld, but like, but like, it's just shit like that, you know. Like, don't have her running through King's Landing. Make that Davos. Take her out of the fucking council. Have her leave on her journey before any of that happens.
But
where did her horse go? Why did she pet the horse? The fact that she
why did that horse have such perfect hair?
Why did that horse fucking exist?
Because come on, that horse was so pretty. That was a very handsome steed.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Very pretty horse. But
but
the fact that she rode off into the distance, this is
sure.
unrelated to everything, and I don't blame her for this, but the fact that she fucking rode off into the distance on the horse, and then at the beginning of the next episode, she's back in
Yeah.
King's
No,
Landing
that
just
no
being
that
chilling.
that was the dumbest shit. So like when she rode off on that horse, I was already like checked out, right? Of like all
Mhm.
of everything. But like I would have been a lot happier with it if we just never saw Ari again for the rest
Yeah,
of the
like
series.
that's a serious rap on Maisie Williams.
Yeah,
Like,
and that would have been great. That would have been awesome.
absolutely. Yep.
Like maybe we get like a little bit of her on a boat in like the ending montage, but like she's just not
Mhm.
in the like
Yeah.
like and like but this is the same, and we had this conversation the last time we talked about this, where I told you like about my rewrite for Brienne, where Brienne dies in the third episode.
Yeah.
And like that makes Jamie's arc in episode 4 make way more sense.
Yes, or make any sense, really.
Right. Yeah. Like it makes sense. It like I understand what they were trying to do, and I understand like what they were trying to show, and they did a bad job because like they did it over the course of one episode. If they did that over the course of like 3 episodes, I think they could have sold it a lot better. If there were like 3 episodes for like Brienne and Jamie's relationship to like breathe, we get to see them like doing stuff together at King's Landing, other than like being in bed and looking upset, and like like you know, like we get to see a little bit more of that relationship kind of like grow and become a thing, and then we feel a lot worse when it's like they're trying to give us this gut punch of like Jamie just like, you know, like it's like an addiction, like you end up relapsing, you end up going back to like what is familiar and what is comfortable, like that gut punch would have like hit a lot harder had we like cared about their relationship a lot more, but we just didn't get to because we had 15 minutes to process it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
and we all know time means nothing in the show at this point, so like
Yes.
who knows how long it was. But yeah, like if Brienne is dead though, and like we get to see like Jamie like mourning over her, and like probably like having a conversation with Tyrion about, you know, his like unrequited feelings and stuff, then like him leaving Winterfell and going back to Cersei like makes a lot of sense. There could even have been like a whole like, oh, I'm gonna stay in Winterfell as like an advisor or a guard to Sansa, the same way that like Brienne would have wanted to do. You know, like that could have been a thing. I didn't even think of that till like right now, but like that would have worked so much better.
Yeah.
But like what did Brienne do for the rest of the series? She became the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Cool.
Right, but I have a question about that too. Fucking why wasn't she? Didn't she pledge to protect Sansa? Why was she just like, you know what would be cool, saying "fuck you, Sansa," and then riding off to King's Landing?
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Like
also the meme of her when she's writing in the book about Jamie,
right,
where it's just, Jamie Lannister is the nastiest skank bitch I've ever met. Do not trust him. He is a fugly slut.
Yeah.
I cried laughing when I first saw that.
Right. Yeah, obviously. Obviously that was very good. Yeah, but like that whole like scene, that could have been like the like Kingsguard could have just been like Podrick that we saw, and that would have made a lot more sense.
Or if they just did an entire 15-minute scene where it's Podrick it's a full penetration threesome scene where Podrick is just going to town on those 2 girls that said hi to him at Winterfell after the Battle of Winterfell. If that's all episode 6 was, aces.
Can we talk about can we talk about the real losers in the Game of Thrones are all of the women that can't be with Pod now that he's a Kingsguard and has to take a vow of chastity?
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah,
is it a vow of chastity? I thought they just couldn't have kids.
I think it's a vow of chastity.
Yikes.
Yeah. And then that's why it was like such a like, among other things, that's why like Cersei and Jamie was such a big deal.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. Let's
I'm
see.
I'm looking this up right now. Hang on.
All right.
I'm trying to find it.
Can we talk on about another pointless character that shouldn't have
Yes.
existed in the
Let's
eighth
hear it.
season? Fucking Braun.
Yep. We could have skipped him.
Can we talk
I
about
think
can
the
we
one
talk
thing
can we talk about how Braun should have died in season 7 when he was fighting that dragon, and that would have been a way better ending for him?
so the one thing that I do like about the ending with Braun, right? Um, one of the things that George R. R. Martin talked about was like he wanted his story to be this idea like at the end of Lord of the Rings, Aragorn lives for
Yeah.
100 years as king, blah blah blah, and
Right.
he ruled wisely and fairly, and he
Yeah.
was basically asking what does that mean,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
what were his
What was
policies?
what was Aragorn's tax plan?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like what made him such a wise and fair ruler. And I think it was the one thing I liked about the about Bronn being the master of coin and making it to where he did, was that the discussion at the small council, even though it was like clearly fanfare and fan service to be like, oh, but
Oh
what
yeah.
about the brothels?
Yeah.
But it actually did kind of serve as this like, look, like, yes, this giant war just ended. King's Landing was burned to the ground. We're trying
Yeah.
to figure out how to rule the country again. And it already, 48 hours after all of that shit settled, we're already arguing about how to spend money and making like minimal
Right.
progress about it.
But
So I think
that didn't
it
have to
wasn't
be
the
that didn't have to be Braun though. It could have been like
no, yes, I agree. There was not the best way to do it, but I am glad that they at least
yeah, I'm glad that they did that too. As much as I hated that scene, I'm glad that it existed.
yeah.
I don't think that Braun needed to be there because I think Braun
No.
needed to die in season 7.
Hmm.
Like,
Or just or like at that point, even if he doesn't die in season 7, right? Like he already came in, threatened Tyrion, be like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like, why would Tyrion actually pay up at that point?
right.
You know?
Well, it's because he's a fan favorite.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that that's the answer to the question, but I don't want it to be.
Right. Well, like, there are a lot of the points that you brought up about Arya, and I didn't want that to be the answer to the question, but it is. You know,
It really
like,
is. Yeah.
so it is what it is. I don't know,
Mhm.
like, but like Braun was like such a good character for so long.
He really, yes, he was.
So many characters were. I mean, like, I used to really like Tyrion. I used to really like Varys, and like,
Everybody used to like Tyrion.
yeah,
I all right. I stand by that. The people say Tyrion is dumb and was a shit hand. In the way that Cersei was able to do dumb shit and get insanely lucky,
so was
Tyrion was
Tyrion.
able to. Well, no, Tyrion was able to do smart shit and get insanely unlucky, right? Like when
Sure.
even going all the way back, not saying that everything he did was right, but even going back to Marine, where Dany was like, "There will be no slaves now." That's like if lawmakers in the United States now are like, "Guess what, guys? We just banned oil."
Right.
Like it would be a fucking mess.
Oh,
His
yeah.
whole like give them whatever it was, 10 years, 15 years
Yeah.
to like wean off of it, tell them it's coming, but like
Yeah.
you have to prepare for it.
Right.
Like that was a smart idea. Even though it worked poorly, that is the correct way to approach a policy like that.
Right.
And it was one of those things where it's just time and time again like, oh, he underestimated Cersei, probably dumb, but like clearly family was a weakness. One of the things
Right.
that Bran said that, or like Bran called back to, is that when he said, I never bet against my family. And I think that stopped being a conscious decision for him. And it was just something, and it just became an
is
inherent
a character trait.
yeah, it just became an inherent character flaw, which, is no longer an issue now that his entire family's dead. So,
Right.
like,
There ain't no family to bet against anymore.
yeah, exactly. So I think there were definitely some instances like that where people say his plan was dumb, but like I don't know. There were aspects of his plans that I thought were well thought out, and just kind of sucked that he got unlucky. And
Except
as
for the like bring a white to King's Landing. That was just
yes,
bad.
no, that
That
was a
was
terrible
that was
idea.
just
That
that was
was
just like
absolutely indefensible. I
oof.
I I try to justify that by saying that that wasn't the only way for him to bring the wall down, right? Like
What do you
I
mean?
just in my mind I justify that like the wall was coming down no matter what. Like some way or another, the Night King was like clearly growing. This was supposed to be quote the longest winter anybody remembered. Like
Right.
winter is supposed to be this magical entity. Like I'm pretty sure George R. R. Martin has gone on record as being like, yeah, no, winter is not just a natural
It's not winter the way
occurrence.
that we think of it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. There's magic behind it. So like whether the magic of winter is the Night King like growing in power, or if it's vice
Yeah.
versa, the winter, we don't know.
Right.
But I the way I see it, that I justify it in my head is that it was going to happen and it was a risk that they didn't know that they were taking, if that makes sense. Like nobody expected for dragons to start fucking dying, even
Right.
though
Yeah. Literally no one, not even like the the viewers.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. So basically, the Night King was going to find a way to get past the wall.
yeah.
Like
Yeah. In the
suppose none of the dragons die. Like
right.
he was going to
He was
figure a
going,
way
yeah,
to
no
do it.
matter what, yeah, because it wasn't even like in the books there's like the magic horn that like the legend
Hmm.
is that it's gonna like bring down the wall, and we don't know how the wall's gonna come down in the books. We know that it will eventually.
Right. Hmm.
um
Yeah.
and so
And
like it could be that it could also they could also like he had enough people that he could just make a zombie bridge over the wall.
yeah, exactly. You could just
Like...
World War Z that shit and just
right.
climb on.
Yeah.
But I think the dragon made for an excellent visual aid.
Oh yeah, and it looked incredible. Like
That exactly. That's what I mean.
Zambo dragon. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I think it was coming down one way or another, but they just kind of expedited the process.
Yeah. Oh man, do you want to
'Cause,
know? Do you want to know a really sad thing about the dragons? Oh, finish your thought and then I'll tell you a really sad thing that I found
yeah, I was
out.
just I was gonna reiterate what I had already said. You go ahead.
Gotcha. I listened to a podcast, Clash of King or Cast of Kings,
Uh-huh.
and they're like a Game of Thrones like recap podcast, and I was listening to it the other day, and one of the people on there knows the lady who does the sound design for the dragon roars.
Oh, did the dragons die in real life?
Uh, well, so they've always been so the audio of the dragon roars has always been like some combination of animal
Mhm.
sounds.
Yeah.
And like it's always been added to and subtracted from, and like it's always been this like crazy mismatch, and they've always sounded really good in my opinion.
Mhm.
The roar that Drogon lets out when Daenerys dies was like an amalgamation of like hundreds of endangered species.
Oh, damn.
So like
That's
that it was like these like hundreds of like birds and like different animals and stuff, and they like there's like this like foreboding sense of like sorrow and like anxiety
Mhm.
in that sound, and that's why. And I was
That's
just like,
awesome.
I was like, holy shit, that is like that's some
That's
heavy
crazy.
shit. Yeah.
And I want to tell you a story,
All
and
right.
I'll get in trouble if it gets out that I'm telling the story. So I figured the best place to do it is on the internet.
Yeah, on this channel that nobody watches.
So I want to preface this with I love my girlfriend dearly.
Right.
She's one of the smartest people I know. She is getting her master's in diet. Just bear with me here. She's getting her master's in
Yeah.
dietetics. She's so smart,
She's
but
she's so smart. I'm gonna help cover for you here. She's so smart that I've never even met her, and she's one of the smartest people I know.
she's smart, and the reason that I know she is smart is because she doesn't know when to admit she doesn't know, when to not admit she doesn't know something. She
Right.
just, if she doesn't know, she asks because she wants to know, and like
That's a
and
that's a great thing.
I think that's a fantastic thing.
That's
but
an
it brings
incredible
up
trait
some
to have.
yes, but it brings up some great questions. So we were lying in bed one day and just sitting there like watching Netflix or
Hmm.
something. I forget what we were watching, and somehow Game of Thrones came up and the fact that there are dragons in it. She does not watch Game of Thrones. And at one point she just turns to me and she's like, I know this is going to be a dumb question, but I just want to make sure. And I feel like you can already guess what this question is going to be. And I'm so sure. And she just looks at me and says, dragons aren't real, right?
You should have been like, "What do you mean? Of course they are."
Part of me wanted to, but I was like, no, you know what? She trusted you enough to ask. Don't be a dick. So I was like, no, they're absolutely not real. But then I started thinking, could you imagine in this day and age if they were? You're flying in a
You're
plane,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you see a goose and you're like, yo, that goose is flying. Imagine fucking Drogon just
Yeah.
flies past your 747. This 180-foot scale fire
Oof.
breathing monstrosity flies past your airplane.
That would be a gigantic nope from me, dog.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, all right, I'm just driving everywhere ever for the rest of my
Yeah.
life because this is awful. But yeah,
That
no, that's my story about dragons.
that's a good story, and Jill was very smart to ask that question, and very smart and handsome. I'm trying to help you out, bud.
I appreciate it. But yeah, I was like, Komodo dragons are a thing, so technically dragons are real. But
Yeah, totally.
but yeah, it was. I
How
forget
else do they
where
get the dragon sounds?
I forget where we were with this a second ago.
I was talking about how the last Drogon scream was all the dying
Yes,
animals
yes.
and how sad
I mean,
that is.
that's just another instance of like every aspect of this show is
It's
unbelievable
so good.
except
Yeah,
except
except the writing.
except for the writing, which is, which is tragic,
Aren't you excited that D&D get to make Star Wars next? Aren't you just rip roaring chomping at the bit for some Weiss and Benioff Star
uh,
Wars?
I just can't wait. I can't I can't wait until they just
The thing
bring
of
bring back bring back Anakin Skywalker,
and Jar Jar
subvert,
Binks.
subvert the shit out of my expectations, and Anakin just like cannibalizes Obi-Wan's corpse in the ground.
Sure, sounds good. The red wedding,
Yeah, exactly.
the red wedding, but it's lightsabers. um, here's I've got a thought, like an overarching thought about the show that I've been thinking about for like a couple of days now, and I like knew I was gonna bring this up and kind of like mention this to you. I'm
Hmm.
curious about your take on it. So, um, the first like the first season of Game of Thrones, like the first book of Game of Thrones,
Game
um,
of Thrones.
right. So yeah, the first book of Song of Ice and Fire, which is Game of
Yeah.
Thrones. So
Yes.
so like the main, like one of the things that like people always talk about when you like bring up the show and you're trying to like talk about like what you like about it, what's cool about it, what like makes it really good, is like people always talk about Ned Stark dying
Hmm.
at the end of
Yes.
season 1. And we talk about how like, the like in this show, like in this world, like you do like, because like Ned's like a good guy and he's like a good character and he like does all the
Hmm.
right things and he takes all the right steps and he like fucking dies for it. and
Hmm.
and like that's like the theme of the show. Like that's the, in my opinion, that's like kind of the story, like whether it's the book or the show, that's like the thesis statement of Game of Thrones, is like being like this like morally straight, like good, like person is not enough. Like it's not gonna, you're not gonna succeed here.
Hmm.
Um, but like the other thing that people talk about all the time is how it was like so shocking. And I was thinking about this even more so like in the books, and I'd have to go back and reread it, but I feel like when I was reading the book, I don't remember getting a ton of Joffrey until that moment, Like we got a little bit of Joffrey, but like we didn't really get to see like how batshit insane Joffrey was in the books until that moment, and like that was like a shocking moment, and I feel like you know us intellectuals like
Obviously.
saw that and thought like wow like the themes of this are like really cool and interesting and like all that, and I feel like Weiss and Benioff or like the people who were like writing and putting together the pitch for the show
Hmm.
saw that and saw like oh this is a show all about subverting the norms and shocking the audience, and like I feel like the a lot of the problems that we faced in season 7 and especially in season 8 was Weiss and Benioff like kind of taking that to the extremes, in like like such a way as to like like all based on this like misunderstanding of the initial premise of the show. Like they didn't tell Amelia Clark the about episode 5 about the bells, like that turn. They didn't tell Amelia Clark that until she got the script for season 8.
Hmm.
And because they wanted it to be like a shocking like twist to like both her and to everyone else. But like if they had given her the script like sooner, she could have worked towards it and it would have, I feel like, I don't know if it would have made it like a better like moment as far as like that heel turn, but it would have, she would have been able to do the background work with the character and like kind of like sell it leading up to that moment.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of almost a callback to the Harry Potter series, right? When J.K. Rowling told Alan Rickman day one
Right.
about the end, not necessarily the end of Snape, but like the big reveal
Right.
from the later books, right? So like
Yeah.
he went into it at the beginning knowing that like this is going, like the way I play my character is building up to this.
Yeah. And I feel like that like I'm kind of bummed honestly that Amelia Clark didn't get a chance to do that because like
Hmm.
she was playing like a lot of these scenes that like were have since been sold to us and recontextualized as like moments where she's like losing her mind and like here's like the last straw and like all that kind of stuff. Like we like in her kind of like playing and reading of that stuff like it Danny doesn't come across as evil at all because she doesn't
Right.
know. Like
Hmm.
so I think that like because they go so far to try to shock the audience and like subvert our expectations or whatever, um
Hmm.
that kind of like led to a lot of the failings of the characters in like
Hmm.
because there was a lot of like meaningful obfuscation of like major character beats for the sake of surprise and shock in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And Ned's death in season one was, I mean, clearly shocking,
Yeah.
but also largely because, I mean,
But
the
like
first they it was people say that Ned was the main character, right? And they're like, "Oh, Game of Thrones killed off the main character." But like I kind of consider the first season to be the prologue,
exactly.
right? So
Yeah.
and that hadn't been established at the time,
Right.
right? So like
There
we
was no
have
main characters. Like
yeah, exactly. So like Ned was at the time was probably the closest thing because he fit into the traditional main character trope, right? Like I'm an honorable man and this and that, and the
mhm.
the subversion is obviously like you said, like they killed the honorable man because he played by the rules
Yeah.
when, and you will lose every game where you are playing by the rules and nobody else is,
Exactly.
right? Like if you're playing tag but the person you're playing tag with just refuses to be it when you tag them, guess
Right.
who's going to fucking lose?
Yeah.
You, every
Right.
time. So, that was the subversion of the trope, and I think when you look at it as the prologue, it makes it is a game of of consequences when it boils down to,
Yeah.
one
Oh
thing
yeah.
happens because another thing, and that's what it boiled down to. And
Yeah.
there's a lesser degree of consequences once you have locked in who is actually a main character, right? Killing Ned set up the real main characters who were,
Yeah.
John, Dany, Arya, Sansa, all that.
Right.
But
Cersei. Like, yeah. Totally.
yeah, right, exactly. And like we didn't realize who the main characters were, so killing anybody,
Yeah.
like how many times has Rob been mentioned in the past 4 seasons?
Dude, don't even like pour one out for old Rickon.
Yeah, exactly. Rickon died at the end of what, season 5? I'm not even sure his name was
Yeah,
said for the rest of the series.
Battle of the Bastards or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no.
then like Rob and his whole family got slaughtered. Like Catelyn's name hasn't been spoken since then. I'm pretty sure the world forgot about Edmure Tully until like just recently.
It took me a minute to remember who he was.
Yeah, no, it took me a hot minute too. Same with Rob and Aaron. Like big.
Well,
talk
like
about
Robin Aaron, like man, like becoming a teenager normally like hits you like a sack of bricks, but I feel like
well,
the
it
opposite
did hit
happened.
him. It did hit him like a sack of bricks, but it turns out that sack of bricks was filled with $100 bills instead.
Right? Yeah, that makes
But
sense. Um,
but yeah, it's
yeah,
I don't know. So many characters are forgotten. Like yeah, yes, Rob's arc was kind of completed when
Mhm.
Arya killed Walder Frey, but like
Right.
I refuse to believe that still doesn't eat away at her.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah. All right, so here's a question. We
let's
can go back and forth on this one. Of all of the characters that were in the show, who do you think had the best character arc and was resolved like was a good arc and then was resolved well?
Theon.
I was 100% gonna say
and
Theon.
and I will add, I'll add to that.
Okay.
I think Alfie Allen was arguably the best actor on the
Hard
entire show
hard agree. I've been saying that too, like all season. He was
because
so good. He had
he
such
has
a
played
hard. He had such a hard thing to do.
he played 3 different characters on this show.
Yeah, and
He played arrogant asshole Theon,
and he crushed it at every
and he
single
crushed it.
like.
And I fucking hated him.
Yeah,
Like he did a good job. Not hated him, but he did a good job of being a cocky bastard
right.
who like
He
wasn't
was like
necessarily
he
a
was
bad
very
person.
much a trope. Like he was like
Yes.
every D&D party has a Theon.
But you know what? He was a believable trope, which
Oh
was
yeah,
was
absolutely.
great.
Yeah,
And then he was Reek,
right.
where he's just this subdued, destroyed, broken shell. He's a broken shell of a husk of a man. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't. And then the fact that he comes back and is, reborn as this humble, like, yep, I am now
Yeah.
yearning and driving and doing whatever I can to get people to forgive me, to restore whatever honor, whatever dignity
Yeah.
that I lost.
Yeah.
I think his arc is as close to an ironclad arc as you can really get.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and
I
think
was- I was gonna say let's go back and forth, but like that was totally my answer. So we think similarly.
And I think most people would agree with that. I don't, there are people whose arcs were satisfying and came to a good conclusion, but I don't think anybody's was as perfect as his, which,
Yeah, I was thinking about this in the car on my way home today, and I came up with another character, but I honestly can't remember who it was.
mhm. I mean, I think Sansa's was good. She went through some shit. She
Yeah.
became it's annoying. It's not her fault, but she kind of became the Yaz bitch, do it. Like her and
Right.
Arya, the Stark girls kind of became that trope, and like
Yeah,
I could go without that, but it doesn't. That's not a character issue. That's a like
That's a
world
that's a
issue.
cultural
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. So like it's a good character, but I hate people's reaction to it.
Yeah.
Um, but I think she's up there. I'm trying to think of who definitely
I
I
like
wanted to.
I mean like we didn't really get a conclusion to his arc, but I always loved Davos.
Oh, of course, everybody loves Dadvos. I
Davos.
mean, he I mean his conclusion is that he's the oh my god, what position did he hold?
He wasn't in the small council meeting, was
He
he?
wasn't in the small council.
I don't think so.
I mean, he's
Oh no,
he's
he was.
Lord.
He's the master of ships now. That's right.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the master of
Okay.
ships. I'm
We
comfortable with
we
that.
we got there. That's how forgettable the last episode was.
Well, because the master of ships just sounds like a made up fucking title. Like, has there been a master of ships the rest of the series?
Yes, it was. So I don't
Who
know
was
if
it?
I don't know if it was in the show, but in the books, Mace Tyrell becomes master of ships.
Oh, that's right.
Because
yes, he was
and
in
I
the show.
and I think that I want to say that it was a made up position just because like they wanted to like put Mace Tyrell somewhere to
Yeah,
like
they wanted to
make
suck
him
up to
feel
him.
good. Yeah,
Yes. You're right.
Yeah.
I do remember that now.
we got there.
Yeah, we cracked the code. But I'm comfortable with Davos's.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm good with that.
Mhm.
Like Sam Tarley's was also like pretty good, though he should have died in the battle at Winterfell.
Yeah, I
I
think
I, I
so.
understand why he wasn't able to, like why they couldn't,
Yeah.
but
Right. I think I think storyline. Yeah, I think storyline wise he shouldn't have, but I think the way the events in the Battle of the Battle of the Bastards, the Battle of Winterfell
Yeah.
unfolded, like he should have died. Right. Like if he's
Right.
lying on the ground, crying and just like not really fighting back, then he should die.
yeah.
Like,
So
if he runs away and finds a way into the crypts at some point, then I'm like,
sure.
that's Sam.
Yeah,
That's my
sure.
boy.
Yeah, hell
That's
yeah.
it.
Everyone loves the wizard.
Everyone loves the wizard,
Yeah.
man.
Fun fact about that scene of him crying. That was not scripted. That was
Didn't
completely
they just
organic.
ran out of stuntmen to
they
throw at him?
they ran out of dudes to throw at him, and so John Bradley just kind of like, because it was like such an intense filming experience that he just
Yeah.
kind of collapsed and started crying, and they kept it.
Yeah,
It was the same.
and
Sorry.
it's perfect because like that's what Sam would do
Oh yeah, totally.
every time.
Yeah. And then the other cool thing from the Battle of Winterfell, there were a lot of cool things from the Battle of Winterfell, like
Mhm.
little things, but with I forget the guy's name who plays Tormund. It's like
Yeah, he just-
Christopher something.
Yeah, he just said, try to take me down, make it look realistic.
Yeah, yeah. He said like, don't pay attention to whatever choreography, just try to take me down, and if I go down, I go down. And like,
Mhm.
if they had used one of the takes where he went down, then like Tormund was gonna die.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like he didn't really do much for the rest of the show either.
I mean, I think he had said that it was always scripted that he was gonna live, was what I had read.
Mm.
That it was scripted that he was gonna live because like
Because someone's
John-
got to look after the goodest boy in Westeros.
pretty much like John basically needs a buddy to go home to when he goes back north,
Yeah.
right? So like Tormund's kind of the only named wildling left.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
Yeah.
it's it's pretty tragic, but
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I'm okay with him living. I would have been okay with him dying too, but
Yeah.
well, let me rephrase that. I wouldn't have been okay with him dying. I would have been devastated.
Right.
When in the scene where in the Avengers scene where they go and try to capture a white and bring it back, when Tormund got pulled back into the horde of whites, I was watching with my sister and my brother-in-law, and I started screaming, and my sister was like, Eric, I've seen you through some shit in life, but I've never seen you as distressed as the moment that you thought Tormund was going to die.
Yeah, dude. He's great. He's the barbarian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the only time that I never have been one to yell at my TV ever, but I did a lot of that in the last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
The first thing that I really yelled at was when John didn't pet Ghost.
Yeah.
That was just
Hmm.
unfortunate. Um, and then yeah, just like I was just laughing and joking and memeing at like everything in the last like 3 episodes because it was just such a dumpster fire.
Yeah. Also, I learned a new term.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a new term for they they turned John into a simp in the last season,
A simp.
which is yeah, SIMP. It stands for sucker idolizing mediocre pussy. And
Yikes!
and
Oh man,
and that's kind of that's
that's
where it
it.
was at.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah. Well, like I mean, it wasn't even that. It's just like they tried to turn him into Ned Stark, but like they turned him into like this like stupid caricature of Ned Stark. To the
Hmm.
like John was always like honorable and good like that
Hmm.
like in the books and even in previously on the show and stuff, but like he was never stupid.
Yeah.
But like they just made him like in like the second episode of season 8 or something. I forget what scene it was, but afterwards I was like, I guess John's just an idiot now. Like,
Was
oh,
it
okay.
was it was it any of the scenes where he said I don't want it?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe, or even just like when he was like when Daenerys is like, "Don't tell anyone, it's gonna be real bad." And he's like, I've got to tell my family, but it's fine. I don't want it."
Yeah, like there's no,
Yeah,
I don't know,
and
it's a
then
very
like
Ned thing to do something and then be like, look, I'm just gonna do this. It's not gonna be a big deal. And then
right,
Pikachu face, it was a big deal.
right, yeah. But like when we got to the point when he's like trying to talk to Tyrion and justifying Dany like
Torching the
like
city.
torching the city, that's when I was like, okay, we've taken this a bit too far.
Yeah, yeah,
like
exactly.
like come on, man. Just we know what you're going to do. You know
Hmm.
what you're going to do. And it's like we don't have a lot of time to wrap up this show. Why are you talking to Tyrion for 10 minutes?
Yeah,
But
it's yeah. I don't know. I honestly though I liked that scene of him talking to Tyrion.
oh, I
It,
did too
it
because
was
it was kind of it was as close as we ever got to like old school Tyrion again.
not even old school Tyrion, just old school Game of Thrones,
Right.
right? Like none. Think about the early battles in the series, right?
Hmm.
Battle of Blackwater Bay. How much battle footage was there in actuality, right?
Not a ton, yeah. There was like the
Like
big set pieces. The like
yeah, there were
blow
big set pieces, but it was maybe like a 20 the actual battle, not like people shuttling up to the walls, but like the actual battle.
right.
Like from the first ignition of the wildfire to Tywin marching into the throne room of the Red Keep saying we've won
Yeah,
was maybe 20 minutes.
probably. Yeah.
And that was a battle scene that will be remembered forever. And the
Right.
shit, what was the battle that Rob beat Jamie, where Rob captured Jamie?
Yeah.
Um,
I
there
forget.
was no battle scene,
No, there wasn't. Like we just
and
he just came back and had taken him.
yeah, and he
And
just had won.
yeah, and there's like that battles. There was that battle where Tyrion was with Tywin, and he had all of the like um Shagga, like the
Yeah,
wild,
Jagger, son of Dolph. Yeah, the
yeah,
Hill Tribe.
and they show them like gearing up, getting ready to go into battle, and Tyrion like puts a helmet on, and then like
Yeah,
the
and then
next
he
the
gets
next
knocked unconscious in
the
the first charge.
yeah, and then the next scene is the battle over. Like
Yeah,
yeah, I agree. I think like I find like those large scale battles to be like impressive from a filmmaking perspective, but like I find them incredibly dull.
yeah.
Like,
Given the content, like the show, historically has not been about those big battles, right? Like I think Battle of Blackwater Bay
Yeah.
had to be had to be shown because you had to depict wildfire,
Right.
right? Like that had to be shown because you needed to show that the stores of wildfire potentially hidden underneath the city, you know, were a real threat, right?
Right.
It wasn't just like it might start a fire underground that'll peter itself out. Like, no, we're nuking ships with this.
Yeah,
And
and that was less. It was less depicting the battle and more depicting like this is like Tyrion's plan being put into motion, and like that's
Right.
all. That's all we were shown, and that was perfect.
Absolutely. And yeah, that was fantastic. I think
I like.
that and honestly, Battle of the Bastards I think was pretty necessary. I thought the 1v1 between Jon and Ramsay, while satisfying to watch Jon just whoop the tar out of Ramsay,
Right.
was not really necessary. But I think the whole idea that like this is what we have,
Yeah.
and they skipped that with Stannis when Stannis attacked Winterfell.
Right.
Right? He was like, we're like we have this many men, and then they got barreled down by the cavalry, and then you have like a brief scene of them getting mowed down, and then it just cuts to Stannis dying against a tree.
Right. Yeah. So, I agree. Like those big set piece battles, and then like, but like that's just kind of where the show ended up was big set piece battles.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I guess.
I mean, and the show kind of it kind of picked its not picked its teeth, but like it got its first wins by having phenomenal character dialogue
Yeah.
with each other. Right. The example I always see people using is like Tywin's introduction scene,
Right.
where he's hacking up the deer and telling
oh
Jaime,
yeah,
fucking moron,
it's
like
so
get over yourself.
so good. Yeah.
Yeah, and Charles Dance also who's an unbelievable actor.
Oh yeah,
Holy
absolutely. Crap. I miss him. I miss him in that show.
I do too. He's just
I'm always anytime I see him in like a TV or a movie or anything that I'm watching, I'm always so happy. Just like Tywin. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we'll pivot back to overarching serious question here. So I've never been a big fan of the battle, like the big scale battles, but I always loved the duels, like the 1v1s. Do you have a favorite 1v1 in the show?
Ooh, man, that's tough to throw at me.
I know mine. I could go first if you would like.
Yeah, give me a minute. You go ahead.
All right. So
I think I have an answer. I'm gonna type out my answer, and then if you say the same one, I'm just gonna hit enter. Okay. I'm gonna type out what I think may be my answer, and if you have the same one.
All right. So my favorite 1v1 is Arya and Brienne.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and delete it because it's not that.
Okay. Yeah. So I loved that Arya Brienne like sparring in season 7, I think it is. When like Arya comes to Winterfell and like she sees Brienne training Podrick, and she like goes up and kind of like shit talks them a little bit, and Brienne is like, "Oh yeah, well like put up or shut up," and she does. I just always loved that, and I love Arya's fighting style, like all of that kind of like the like Braavosi like water dancing stuff. I've always like loved that kind of fighting style in any show or anime or video game or whatever.
I think for me that scene is it very much is in the realm of the Battle of Winterfell for me, right? Like visually it is very well done, and it's like a cool spectacle, but I thought the fight itself was like, really?
Right.
Like for actuallys though, because like at no point is Arya prior to this shown as having any kind of skill specifically with a sword. Like every time she has tried to use needle or used it successfully, she has mostly been killing people who are no longer able to fight back, or she's been fighting with a large stick.
Right.
So the one time that she supposedly does use it is when she kills the wave.
Right,
And
but
for her to come back and suddenly be able to thoroughly just shit on supposedly one of the greatest swordsmen in Westeros,
well, like
to me,
the thing about it, and it wasn't necessarily that Arya was like that much better than Brienne. It's just that much different. Like, think about it. Like, Brienne's probably never had to fight against a fencer before. Like, she's probably never had to fight against someone like a Braavosi before, and like that like kind of like fluid like Braavosi style of swordplay is like made to like to like be able to give you an advantage against people exactly like Brienne, like big slow fighters. So it was like
I can't get behind that in a world where that is immediately subverted because Brienne fucking kicked her in the chest. Like, Brienne was like, all right, well, now that I'm over all of you swatting your around, I'm just gonna kick you in the chest and knock you to the. And yes, she does the cool like spin breakdance getup, but like again, in an actual fight, she kicks her to the ground and then runs at her while she's doing all of that bullshit, and then just like starts killing.
yeah, I don't know. I just I've always loved that moment.
See, I think in my mind at least the duel that demonstrates the stylistic difference better, and I think is going to end up being my answer.
Oh, I think I know exactly what you're gonna say.
Yeah, is Braun versus the what's his face at the Eyrie.
Oh, that's not what I thought it was gonna be. But that is a good one. Yeah.
In Tyrion's trial by combat, where
Yeah.
where it ends by he kicks him through the moon door,
Right.
and Lysa is like, you don't fight with honor, and Braun just says, yeah, no, but like he did, so
yeah. Fuck you. Yeah.
kind of is what it is, and I think that's, to me, is a more interesting display of like
Oh yeah,
willingness
totally.
to use different tactics than the Brienne
Right.
Arya sparring, because it
Yeah.
really is just like
Yeah.
cutthroat, do whatever you can to win, versus the guy who's like, I shall fight and
Right.
win, and then it's like, oh well, now you're like literally hamstrung and kicked through a fucking hole in the.
Yeah. No,
I think.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I was picking based on fun, not on character development.
Yeah, but I think for me, even on fun, I think that's more interesting because watching that there were actual stakes.
Right.
Like, this was still at a period in the show. I think it was 2, maybe
It was
season 3,
it was season 2, I think.
where
Because it was before Tyrion became the Hand, I think.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
and you can be like,
Maybe it was even season 1.
maybe
I don't know.
it's possible.
Yeah, whatever.
But either way, like, you are, yeah, I think it was season 1. But either way, it's at a point where Tyrion is in a very real risk of dying.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right? Like, we're still at a point in the series where we haven't really come to terms with the fact that like Tyrion's a main character.
Right.
And it would not have been unrealistic.
And that was also at a point in the series where like it genuinely felt like plot armor didn't exist.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. So like, imagine a world where Ron says, I'll do it, and then he loses to this heavily armored knight.
Right.
Very realistic result.
Yeah.
And then Tyrion gets executed. Lannister army goes apeshit, like tries to torch Winterfell, and then like you go from there.
Right.
Right.
It's a very different.
They execute Sansa, torch Winterfell, and then like that leaves Arya as the only remaining true blue Stark.
Right.
Or no, I guess at that point Robb and Cat are still alive.
That's true.
But like, and then Robb is in a spot where he's like,
and Rickon. Don't forget about Rickon.
And Bran, I guess. A lot of Starks still alive. But it puts them in this spot where things could have happened differently, and not just they could have happened differently, they could have happened.
Right.
So like, Tyrion dying there is not the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, I thought of another one that's really good. Is the Oberyn Martell mountain fight?
Yep, that is phenomenal.
That's the one that I thought you were going to talk about.
I mean, that's up there. I
That's
think
so good.
I think the way it's not 1v1, but it's small scale enough that I think you'll forgive me for counting it was
Yeah.
when Bran flashes back to the Tower of Joy.
Oh
Sir
yeah. Oh
Sir
dude,
Arthur
that's
Dayne
so.
versus
Yeah, Sir Arthur Dayne, what a fucking monster he was. Oh, I love that shit. Yeah,
yeah.
I love small scale combat so much more than the like
Oh, I
large scale epic battles. It's so much more
because
interesting.
I mean because it's so much more emotional and
Yeah.
right, like it's so much more personal. But yeah,
Right.
I think that scene was great. Also, it kind of bothered me that like Howland Reed never chimed in or was like shown to exist
Do
because like
you so there's a theory amongst fans that the random person who we don't know that was sitting between Edmure Tully and Samwell was Howland
was
Reed.
Howland Reed. I
Yeah.
love it.
And so whether or not that is true and that's like meant to be a thing, in my headcanon it is. And he just says nothing and that's the perfect analogy for the show.
That is, I like it. I definitely because really,
he's like finally I've come, I can tell everyone this great secret about John. And then like he gets there and everyone's like Daenerys is dead, like we hate, like all the Targaryens are dead, everyone hates Targaryens. He's like, I better keep this one to myself.
yeah, better hold on to this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it all like goes back to the whole three men can keep a secret if two are dead, right? Like,
Right.
but I don't know. I like Howland Reed just his existence. If he's ever, I mean, he was demonstrated to have existed in the show,
Yeah.
and the fact that not only did he exist in the show, but like Jojen and Mir are like people who exist in the show.
Right.
So
Who
like
who are very forgotten about in
yeah,
the
and
show.
he's like
Not even
puppy.
not Bran doesn't even mention them once. Like,
Yeah,
fucking Bran.
like completely written off, and Mira goes home after all of that. Like she supposedly
Right.
goes back to her father, so she and invariably she would tell him, be like, I am back from helping Brandon Stark become the three-eyed
Yeah.
raven. He's like,
Did-
Brandon Stark,
Yeah.
I knew his dad, Ned
Right.
Stark, and his dad, his bastard child, I bet you didn't know this,
Yeah.
is not actually his kid. And he just like
Did
says
so,
something.
did she go back or did she die?
Mira,
Yeah.
she just left at the end. Jojen died, and
I know
love
Jojen died. I thought
in the
Mira
books-
died.
in the books, it's also strongly implied that they ate Jojen after that, which is
I know.
fucking dope. But no, Mira survived because like she like walks into Bran's room, says I'm leaving, and Bran's like later, thanks,
Okay.
and she's like,
Oh.
wait, that's it, like not even a thank you, and then she's just like, you died in that cave, and then she leaves and is never heard from again.
Got you. No, okay. I was thinking of Osha.
Yes, Osha dies because
Ramsey, yeah.
Night-
I thought there was like a scene of Mira dying in a similar way, but I was just getting my characters messed up.
Yeah.
My side characters. My like H plot characters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's. Yeah, it just.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I just want Howland Reed. I feel like the show.
the Howland Reed spinoff.
Yeah, like where he just sits in his castle
Yeah.
and just chills.
Right. Just gets up, has breakfast.
It's like, whew, if only there was a way for me to stop all of this from happening.
Right.
It's like, oh, I wish.
What am I gonna do? I can't hold all this war.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've been talking for an hour and a half. Is there anything else that we feel needs to be discussed? Because an hour and a half feels pretty good to me.
I agree. I'm trying to think if there's any last. All right, here's my last question for you.
All right.
I'm sure you know the scene I'm talking about at when Dany like walks out to speak to the Unsullied and the Dothraki, and
Oh yeah,
there's like this really
the
subtle shot of her with the dragons.
You mean the only good part of the last episode? Yes.
What was your reaction to that?
Oh, I thought it was great. I thought I like so at this point, like by the time that happens, I've come to terms with like that's the kind of show this is now, right? Like that's like I was saying before with like Tyrion finding Jaime's hand. Like that's the kind of show we are now. So at this point, I'm completely checked out and have no care about like things being bad, and I'm just along for the ride. And from like a cinematography point of view, I thought that shot was really dope.
I laughed so hard.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was like,
all right, it was the same, pretty much the same response. I was like, that looks cool,
yeah,
but like it's also not even a little subtle.
yeah,
It's
no,
just-
yeah, it was very good. It's a very gifable moment.
yeah.
Also, there was a really funny meme from like when Drogon like gets up and shakes all the ash off of himself, and like John's like trying to walk by him. It was literally just that, but someone overlaid the Dark Souls UI over it.
Oh, that's terrific.
Because it did look like a Dark Souls boss intro.
Oh, it absolutely did, no question.
So is Game of Thrones the Dark Souls of prestige television?
At one point,
Yeah, at one point it really was, wasn't it?
surviving was fucking hard, man.
Yeah. So I think that's our takeaway. That's our ultimate takeaway from this discussion. So
Is that
Game of
Game of
Thrones
Thrones was Dark Souls?
was Dark Souls, but on TV.
I think that's fair.
I think that
I like it.
yeah, we've taken a long road to get here, but I'm honestly I'm glad it's over.
Yep.
And I'm glad that we don't have to deal with the internet. I mean, we have to deal with the internet losing its shit over Game of Thrones probably for another like month or so.
I was gonna say probably not even that long. I was gonna guess another week or two.
Yeah.
And there will be memes about like.
Oh yeah, forever.
I think there was something, I forget what it was about. It might have been like a Smash tournament where like the end of the game ended really stupidly. So it was like that ending was more disappointing than season 8 of Game of Thrones. And I was like, all right, I like it.
Yikes! All right, that's where we're at, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the perfect encapsulation. If you would allow me the final thought of our little discussion.
By all means.
When in the very first shot of season 8, we get a lot of like these callbacks to Robert and Cersei like coming to King's Landing from like the first thing. We get like the long processions of soldiers. We get like that kid who's like climbing around to like get a good vantage point. We get like, you know, like different shots of like different characters reacting in different ways. And the first thing that we like get of like a character other than Arya, we get like a little bit of her in the crowd, I think, like being a ninja. And like we cut into a carriage where Tyrion and Varys are. And the very first line of dialogue, the very first like spoken dialogue in the entirety of season 8 was a dick joke. And at that point, it was at that exact point that I knew what we were in for the rest of this show. And I think that like that whole like moment is like a perfect summation of the series. Just this like big, like epic, cool looking set piece, this incredibly well choreographed army, like all of this cool set design and like costume design, all of this production value. The score is incredible, and we have two beloved characters just talking about dicks. And that's the perfect like summation of Game of Thrones for me.
I think that's a very fair takeaway. I like it.
Yeah. So this has been Chair Talk, our one time only podcast where we discuss Game of Thrones. I'm Steve, and this is Eric, a sentient bottle of water. Thank you for joining me on this, Eric. It was fun.
Thank you for having me.
And that's gonna be that, folks. Have a good night.